Hey everybody, what's up? It's your friend Chase. Welcome to another episode of the Chase Jarvis Live Show here on Creative Live. You all know the show. This is where I sit down with amazing humans and I do everything I can to unpack their brains, their stories, their missions and visions with the goal of helping you live your dreams, whether that's in career, in hobby, or in life. My guest today, he's a two-time podcaster. I'm super happy to have him back. He's the founder and CEO of Charity Water, which is my favorite charity on the planet. I'm humbled to be in your presence, my good man. Welcome back to Mr. Scott Harrison.
Thanks, dude.
Yes.
Yeah, I was joking with your team. I invited myself back. I was like, hey, Chase, can I come back on? And then I think I realized we're probably both wearing the same thing we were the first time we did it.
Almost identical.
Black on black. I'm like, wow. So I invite myself back and I wear the same jeans and the same shirt. I could have at least...
In the same hotel.
In the same hotel. But at least you're consistent. So.
That's right. I'll take it. Hey, man, anytime I can get an hour with you is a great hour. First of all, welcome back.
Thanks, man.
Second of
Thanks
all,
for having me.
Holy smokes, congratulations on your book.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love it when my friends do things and they say, hey, I want to come back on the show. To me, like the second I heard that you got a book deal, I knew that we would be doing this. I'm super passionate about the cause. We have a history together. We've hosted some events on Charity Water's behalf on the other coast.
In Seattle again.
Yeah, wow. It's been a minute. But it seems like a lot has happened.
Yeah.
You've had a couple of
When
kids.
When was the last time? It was 2 years? Year and a half?
Yeah, at
2
least
years ago. Okay.
2 years ago, I think.
Kids, yeah.
Yeah, you've had children since then. Obviously, the Charity Water just continues to grow, and congratulations there. I'm hoping to cover a fair bit of ground. I want to focus on the book, of course, but within the book there are stories, and there's stories within those stories. I want to hear a little bit about the gala. I have yet to make it across the country, and
I'm bringing it to you this year.
Yep,
closer. It's in San Francisco.
And to me, that makes me very joyful. And we also can talk about anything you want to talk about, because This is, Mikasa Sukasa. So we're going to go to the book, and I'm going to start this little. I think it's first of all, kudos, incredible. I'm going to read the sort of the back of the book, because I think it does a nice job.
Okay.
And
then we get all that out of the way.
Yeah, but it goes like this. At 28 years old, Scott Harrison had it all. As a top nightclub promoter in New York City, his life was an endless cycle of drugs, booze, models, and repeat. But 10 years in, and desperately unhappy, morally bankrupt, he asked himself, what would the exact opposite of my life look like? Walking away from everything, Harrison, that's you, spent the next 16 months on a hospital ship in West Africa discovering his true calling. In 2006, with no money and even less experience, he founded Charity Water. Today, his organization has raised over $300 million to bring clean drinking water to more than 8 million people around the globe. There's another 2 paragraphs I'm not going to read, but I think the story, why I wanted to read that rather than unpack it, because we spent 90 minutes together on our previous podcast, and I think we talked a lot about the initial formation of Charity Water. Yeah. To me, I want to, because this book is really a memoir, right? It's a story of redemption, compassion, and a mission to bring clean drinking water to the world. I want to focus on the you part of this. So what I also remember is your mother was very sick.
Yep.
And that is one of the things that caused you to I think you've cited, like I wanted to go do the opposite of taking care of my sick mother.
Yeah.
But give us early Scott. Like, how did you decide that this life of being a club promoter was something that you wanted? Incorporate your sick mother, if you would, and then catapult us to, we don't need to go too deep into the drugs and rock and roll. I think that's a chapter that we covered pretty deeply last time.
Yeah.
But then start with Charity Water.
Yeah, it's interesting, when you spend 18 months writing 100,000 words, which is really, 150,000 words to get to 100,000 words. It does give it gives a slightly different perspective. In some way, it's cliche. Like, my story is it almost feels like I lived out the parable of the prodigal son, you know, or the rebellion, right? It's like the movie, you know, that
it reads like
somebody sat around and like, okay, you know, repressive childhood, religious childhood,
sick mother,
sick mom, right? Feel sorry for the kid, like, okay, then rebels, and then like sex, drugs, rock and roll, and then sees the light,
redemption.
And, redemption, right? It's almost like that kind of, it was done on a whiteboard, after a bunch of cocktails. So, of course, it was my story, and I lived it. I was 4. There was a carbon monoxide gas leak in our house. Our whole family got sick. There were 3 of us: dad, mom, me, and mom was the only one that didn't recover. And she was an invalid. She was allergic to the world. People thought she was crazy because you can't really see what happens when carbon monoxide destroys one's immune system and her body's ability to function normally in the world, to fight off chemicals. Or I was just at my dad's house this weekend reading letters, and there was this excoriating letter to me because I came home and I didn't change my clothes, and some aftershave had gotten on my clothes and it made mom deathly ill. So my childhood was just this
wow.
bizarre childhood of keeping mom safe, keeping her pure. We lived in this sterile environment almost. She actually lived after the illness, or after the carbon monoxide exposure. Anything chemical made her sick, from perfume to car fumes to the ink from books. Like if she held this book, because this is new ink, it would make her sick. So if
and when you say sick, like what kind of sick?
Migraines, hypertension, vomiting, nausea. To read as a child, I would bake her books. So I would put these things in the oven to try to get the smell of the print or the ink out. Or I would put them out on the back lawn. So I just found a childhood photo of 50 books just lying out there in the sun, baking them in the sun, in the oven. And then I would take the book up to mom's bathroom where she lived. She lived in a tile-covered bathroom with aluminum foil surrounding the door. She lived in an army cot that had been washed 20 times in baking soda to get any smells out. And she was nestled in between the sink and the toilet and the tub. And I would come up and I'd knock on her door and say, "Mom, I have a book. I think I got all the smell out." And she would put on cotton gloves, because if she touched the ink, it would get in her bloodstream and she'd get sick. Then she would wear this crazy charcoal mask that smelled like disease. And then she could read the baked or burned, slightly charred book. So that was what childhood was like. It was weird. My friends thought mom was crazy. Even my dad, we struggled with this. Was it in her head? Because there's just no, her carbon monoxide levels detected in the blood were far, far above what anyone ever should have. 10 times a smoker's or something crazy.
Wow.
But you couldn't see the symptoms.
It's so hard. That's like pain. And, you hear these fibromyalgia stories where they don't know what the pain is, and that's very, very real. But the symptoms are so generic, in Western medicine it seems interesting to me that there was a very clear event where,
we were lucky to have that. I mean, we found the leak. My dad ripped the furnace out, found the little pinhole cracks with an HVAC guy, and I write about this in the book, but my parents had a deep, authentic Christian faith. They were non-denominational Christians, and they decided not to sue the gas company for gross negligence. Probably could have gotten millions and millions of dollars. The gas company came out 2 or 3 times and said everything's fine. Ooh. And then it was actually Dad's HVAC friend who ripped the thing out and said, "Everything's not fine. You got a carbon monoxide leak in your house." So they didn't sue, and I grew up in the church, playing by the rules. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't cuss, I didn't sleep around. I played piano on Sunday mornings. And then something happened at 18, and I said, what would the opposite of that look like? What would it look like to drink, smoke, and sleep around, and gamble, and travel around the world, and join a band, and grow my hair down to my shoulders? And what would all of those things that I'm not allowed to do feel like?
Let me stick a pin on this for a second. So, how old were you when your mother's or the accident happened?
4.
Wow. So 4 years old, and from 4, there was a lot of caretaking from not just your father, but from everyone.
Yeah.
Right? You talked
Just
about
two of
baking,
us,
baking books. And at 18, is this, are you fed up? Is it like, what's the mental bit that you flipped in your head?
Well, I changed.
Because it's more than what's the opposite of this? Because no 18-year-old says that.
Yeah, that's actually fair. It's good that you pushed on it. I mean, I was this kind kid who wanted to take care of mom, who wanted to be a doctor when I grew up. I would do the cooking for her. I would help clean the house. I had this depth of compassion. As I aged into a teenager, the compassion dwindled, the angst rose, and mom would sit outside most of the day in a lawn chair in a lean-to that a friend would build in the backyard. She would yell to me, yelling, "Get me this," or I just started to resent that. I would ignore her. That teenager. Your world
is like you.
I'll give you an example. She would say that electromagnetic radiation made her sick. So therefore, no TV or radio. Okay? Well, as a teenager, I'm like, you're crazy. You just don't want me to watch TV. Right? You just don't want me to listen to the radio.
Yeah.
So it felt like rules. So I write about this as well. There was a moment as a teenager where I didn't believe her, and I take a radio after she's gone to sleep, and I sneak down the corridor, and I face this boombox at her bed through the door, but I turn the volume all the way off. So she'd have no way of knowing. And she wakes up the next morning scared, incredibly sick, not knowing, because I thought it was in her head. I thought it was psychosomatic.
Yeah.
So it was stuff like that. It was just starting to say, is this real? And I want my life. In some ways, I had sacrificed so much of my childhood. I wanted a normal mom. I wanted to do normal things. And that led me to New York City. When I first came to New York, I joined a band, and we started playing CBGBs and Wetlands and all these amazing clubs at the time. The band broke up, yet another cliche, because of drugs and because of the fact we couldn't get along. And with the band breaking up, I thought, well, I should probably go to college now, at least part-time, because Dad saved up, and we didn't have money growing up, middle class, but he had started saving by the time I was born, and there was only one of me. So I reluctantly, like as if I'm doing my parents this huge favor, I'm like, okay, I'll go to NYU.
Take all your money and go to NYU.
Take all your money, go to NYU. Of course, no scholarship because my grades sucked and I barely graduated high school. And let me graduate with a communications degree because that's the easiest thing I could think of. And I maybe went to half the classes, got C's, barely graduated. And then early on at 19, fell into nightclub promotion and couldn't believe that there was this job that existed, an actual job where people would pay you to consume alcohol. People would pay you to drink. It's like, what do you do for a living? I drink. And not only that,
your friends
brands would pay you.
Yeah.
So we worked at 40 clubs, my business partner and I, over the decade. And at the top of our game, Bacardi was writing us a $4,000 check every month to be seen in public drinking Bacardi. And Budweiser said, well, we'll also pay you $4,000 a month. Can you just make sure when you're out at your clubs, you only drink Bud? Like, yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Funny thing.
$4 a month. Like, yes, we will drink Bud. I mean, it tastes disgusting, but we'll drink it if it's paying the rent. So, everything that came with the territory, the decline in morality, started with smoking. I was doing an off-Broadway play for fun, and my character smoked. I'm like, well, I have to be a method actor, right? I should start smoking. So then that led to 2 to 3 packs a day for 10 years, and starting to drink and starting to sleep around. It's like, well, might as well just
all in now.
Might as well go all in, right? I got nothing to lose, and pick a vice: drinking, cocaine, ecstasy, MDMA, gambling, pornography, strip clubs. I mean, everything short of heroin would have been a vice I'd taken on, over those 10 years. And it just left me really soulless.
What was the moment you talked about?
Well, it's almost like, the pot boiling, right? Where you don't really know the moment is happening. And then, oh my gosh, my life sucks.
Yeah.
So I think I was running from it. I was running from the realization that things were wrong. I had put conscience way off to the side. I remember there was this churchy language growing up that, Scott, don't allow your conscience to be seared. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's in a frying pan, right? Like it's a piece of tuna. But that's actually what happened. I mean, the more stuff you do and the more you don't own up to it, the more you lie, the more you do drugs, you're like, well, that's just, I don't want to really think about the morality of that. So I had this moment. I was 28 years old and I was in South America and it was this amazing vacation, and I had collected most of the markers that I thought would lead to my happiness.
You had the watch.
I had the watch, I had the nice car, the Beamer, I had the nice piano in my apartment. My girlfriend was, the most beautiful girl of everywhere we went, and she was on the cover of fashion magazines and doing runway. And I had this, it was almost like the game of musical chairs where the music stopped and I didn't have anywhere to sit down for the first time. I'd always been the first one in the chair, pointing my finger, making fun of, whoever lost. And it was just this strange cathartic moment where it's almost like the veil was lifted, a moment of clarity amidst the opulence and the decadence and the magnums of Dom Perignon and the pure MDMA and the yacht and the $1,000 of fireworks that we blew up in our backyard, that there would never be enough. That there would never be enough girls, there'd never be enough money, somebody would always have a better watch and a better car and a better this. And it was this endless pursuit of selfishness and hedonism that, it would have no end, or it'd have no good end. And I guess I started, coming up on 30, I was 28, so with the 30 milestone, I started thinking about legacy. And said, my tombstone might actually read, here lies, a selfish SOB who spent his life getting people wasted. And in fact, he got millions of people wasted. And who wants that on their tombstone?
Yeah. Was there some? So you talk about it as like a boiling pot, and all of a sudden you look around and it's like, oh my God, it's boiling. Do you have that feeling with other things in life? Like I'm trying to extrapolate. I don't want to pull you out of the journey here because it's going to drive the people at home who are listening to this story crazy. But it seems like that is very common, not just with lifestyle, not just with drugs or any sort of addictive behavior. Is that still? Does it have a place in your world anymore? Do you realize, are you working? Do you go off the deep end with work? Have you taken some of those vices and redirected them towards work in a good way, in a healthy way?
Yeah, there's a moment where I almost burned out, and I write about that. And why I thought that was at least interesting to write about was because everybody told me I was going to burn out for 9 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, still going, just did 98 flights last year, right? 150 speeches, right? Unstoppable. And this is before kids.
Sure.
But it was this frenetic pace of, again, when I did move over to Charity Water, it was completely redirected. Right now, I'm raising tens of millions of dollars for the poorest people in the world. People are drinking; they're just drinking clean water.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the more you do, the more lives we save. I've been to 69 countries. I've been to Ethiopia 30 times. So I was seeing this. Yeah, the reaction. I would stand on a stage.
Yeah, work in, money comes in.
Fly to Berlin or, fly to Phoenix, and you stand on a stage and you tell the story, money comes in. And then a couple days later, I'd be in Malawi or Ethiopia or Nepal, and you'd see people drinking clean water. It was cause and effect in the best way possible. Not cause and effect, we rang 60 G's in booze tonight, on champagne. My cut's $9,000 or, it was very different. So, yeah, I did just hit that wall. Okay. And that was kind of, slow. Everything's fine. Oh my gosh, I'm really tired. I don't want to do this anymore.
Okay, go back, and I think I knew that about you. I just didn't know how we were going to get there. I didn't want it to be linear. So put a pin in that. Now let's go back to you shift gears at 28. You're like, what's going on? And take me to West Africa.
Well, I come back from this vacation and, a couple months of floundering because I got a change of heart, a change of conscience. I want my life to look different. I want to find my way back to lost faith, to lost morality. I want to feel clean. I felt dirty inside, and I was morally bankrupt. I was spiritually bankrupt, and it was hard. And then there's an incident that I write about in the book that was this great out. Something happened at a club and gave me, a great reason to get out of town for a couple weeks. And with that added perspective, I said, well, what if I never went back? And what then would be next? And what would the 180-degree turn look like? And the most extreme opposite I could think of was serving the poor in the poorest country in the world. Right? If I was serving the rich, in the $1,000 bottles of Cristal in one of the top cities in the world, New York City, in the clubs that were ringing 60 G's a night. We were selling vodka Red Bull for $25. I mean, it was amazing what people would pay for something, right? 30-cent drink, right?
Yeah.
Or cheap vodka even. So that was the idea: serve on a humanitarian mission, volunteer, don't get paid for it, and tithe back. Tithing being a very kind of Christian thing from my childhood. Give one of the 10 years that I'd selfishly wasted back. So I applied all these organizations that I've heard of, and the Oxfams and Save the Children's and UNICEF, and of course, no one will take me. So I'm shocked, right? I'm this club guy in New York and get 1,000 people to stand outside a velvet rope and get excited about ripping them off for cocktails, and I can't even volunteer my services for free. And as it would turn out, only one organization finally accepted me under the conditions that I would pay them $500 a month and actually go live in the poorest country in the world on a mission to Liberia, which had just escaped a 14-year civil war. So I went looking for the opposite of my life, and there's probably nothing more opposite than selling $1,000 bottles of Cristal to then paying to go serve in post-war Liberia, a country with no electricity, no running water, no sewage, no mail system, just completely ruined. It was actually, I remember at the time, it had fallen off the UN development chart. It wasn't last, it was off. They're we just don't have any data. It was definitely last, but
so
far between last and second to last. And long story short, I joined a medical mission as a photojournalist. So I actually dusted off the NYU degree. Some more irony there. The degree that I never used, that I didn't want to get, doing my parents this huge favor. Well, it turned out they did me a favor because I actually was qualified to do this humanitarian job as a photojournalist. I'd always taken pretty good photos. I'd always been a decent writer. And I just start storytelling from Liberia, West Africa, to the 15,000 people on my club list that I've been getting drunk for 10 years. And I mean, it was an abrupt change. I mean, if you were on my email list, you would have gotten invited.
Cockroaches flip on the light, right?
It was come to the Prada opening, the Prada store opening in Soho. 2 months later, it's I don't know, you're getting photos of leprosy. Hey, I'm in a leprosy colony, and here are the patients that I'm meeting, or here's a kid suffocating to death on his own face with a giant facial tumor. So there were definitely some unsubscribes.
Yeah.
Right? Tick me off, not what I signed up for. But I learned in that moment, the power of the personal transformation was interesting to people who had partied with me, who knew me as one thing, not as the guy who would care about the poor in Liberia, not as a guy who would be pouring my heart out really in these stories as I would meet people and learn about their hardship and their sickness and their disease. And so there was a personal interest. And then there was this, it's so hard to find the right word for this, but almost like a wistfulness. So I would write these stories and people would say, how do I go do that? How would I find my way to an opposite experience like that? I remember once I'd sent out a post about somebody maybe blind and with cataracts, and we'd given them eye surgery. And the email comes back, and this woman says, I'm sitting here at my desk in Chanel. It's brightly lit, and I have tears streaming down my face. People wonder, what is wrong with me? But I just had no idea that these problems existed, that there were solutions, that people could be helped like this. So I was getting really positive feedback, outside of the unsubscribes. People said, how do I help? How do I give? How do I volunteer like you? How do I change my life? I feel stuck as well.
Yeah.
I don't want to sell $5,000 purses or $1,000 shoes. And I want my life to have meaning. So that was I did that for 16 months or almost 2 years with the in-betweens. And, among everything that I'd seen in West Africa and my travels around Africa, it was just the need for clean water. There was just the one thing that rose.
So
I was in leprosy colony. It just felt like the one thing that wasn't okay on my watch. And maybe it was because I had sold Voss water for $10 in clubs to people who wouldn't even open the water. Just come in and, you raise your hand, hi, give me 10 bottles of water, and $100 of water just sits there unopened because you're drinking champagne or vodka. Maybe it was because I just intuitively thought that if you wanted to make people healthy, because I was with doctors who were doing expensive surgeries, why not go to the root cause of so much of the sickness was, as it turned out, was 52% of all disease throughout the developing world. Water and sanitation, it's water and toilets. So you could make half the sick people well by just giving them clean water and toilets. So I stumbled into that. Of all the things I saw, it was just water's going to be my thing. It's crazy that at the time it was a sixth of the world. 1 out of every 6 human beings alive
billion
don't
people
have clean water. It was 1 billion people when we first met. And I just wanted to see that number come down to 0. And that became the mission. And I came back to New York City at 30 to try to make that a reality.
So that arc, that personal, you call it the prodigal son.
I quit everything. I should say this, that I did the hard work of going cold turkey. Mm-hmm. I drink a little bit, but I never smoked again. And I went out with a bang. I mean, there was a moment.
This is my last
There
party.
was the last hurrah, Chase. I kid you not. I was about to board the hospital ship the next morning and sail to Africa with a group of doctors and humanitarians. I'm like, I am going out with a bang. I mean, I think I had 8 beers, 3 packs of Marlboro Reds. I boarded the ship that next day with blister packs of nicotine gum and a patch.
Like, I'm going.
I'm like, I gotta
strength.
quit. But I never smoked again, and I never looked at a pornographic image. And this is 13 or 14 years again. I never set foot in a strip club. I never touched coke or X or any of that stuff again. I never gambled again, and I speak in Vegas all the time. I loved gambling, but I really just said I need to do the hard work, shed all these vices in order to allow a new story for my life. And I didn't want to just kind of have one foot in both worlds, the old world and
Tap into that.
I like beer and wine too much. That's probably my one last vice. I never trust anyone with no vices. But
fair.
That's a lot harder in the 40s now with 2 kids, and you have
Glass of
3
wine sounds
glasses.
pretty
You have
good.
3 glasses of wine. You wake up at 5:30 with the kids, and you're in pain. That used to be like the preamble to the night.
Right. That's getting started. So without reinventing charity, the giving part of charity, I think it's fair to say that you reinvented how charities could be. For me, one of the reasons that I connected with you and Charity Water, aside from mutual friends, is it looked and felt like the thing that I want to contribute to. So in large part, you created a mission and a vision, something that was so foundational. Like I always like to go back to first principles. Water is the sort of an equivalent of a first principle, and you did it with simplicity, with elegance. It's the equivalent, I feel like, I'm going to loud some compliments on you here. It's the equivalent of what Tesla is to cars or Apple is to technology. And you made it contemporary. You gave me...
It's okay to say cool.
Yeah, cool. You made it...
Should be.
Yeah.
Giving and generosity and compassion and empathy should be cool.
Right. And
it should be fun.
It should be. And so, did you set out with that in mind, or was that a key principle, a core value that it was going to be all those things, or did that just emanate from you as a cool person, an empathetic, kind, understanding person? Like, because there's a sort of a brand associated with it. You built a brand, which is it's required, and I think it's one of the things that differentiates you.
I talk about this a lot in the book because I think this part could actually help people. You mentioned mission and vision. So the mission was to bring clean drinking water to everyone on the planet. So the mission is accomplished when no human being alive is drinking bad water, putting their life at risk. However, the vision is actually very, very different than that. The vision, as you said, was to reinvent charity, was to reimagine the giving experience. And, let me riff on that a little bit. So I had the unique advantage of starting the organization at 30 with no charitable experience and no circle of friends who
gave money,
did anything charitable, really. So as I go and tell everyday 30-year-old party people, hey, I'm going to bring clean drinking water to the entire world, they look at me like I have 6 heads. And in conversations, I realized that they weren't giving. There was a huge cynicism and skepticism and a lack of trust with charity. And some of it was very, very well founded. Other wasn't. But everybody would have a horror story they could pull out of their back pocket and say, oh, the charity that raised $2 billion for X disaster and is still sitting on $1 billion 10 years later, right?
Yeah.
Or the CEO who's paying himself millions and millions of dollars and hiring his cousins and nephews for his charity. They don't actually do anything, or the high overheads, or everybody seemed to have an excuse. And I learned there was data behind this. 42% of Americans polled said they just didn't trust charities. And this shocks people because no one is more generous than American, right? Of all the countries in the world, we have this philanthropic heritage. I mean, Americans give money, but yet almost half the country doesn't trust the system. 70% of Americans, interestingly, polled by NYU, when asked about how charities handle money, 70% said they believe charities either waste money or badly waste money. 30% of people thought charities were good stewards and did the right thing with money. So for me, that was the big problem I was going to have to solve to make any meaningful impact on the water crisis, to move the needle in any substantial way, helping humans get clean water. We would have to address the cynicism, the skepticism, and build a completely new construct. So I just started trying to address those objections through the business model. Okay, well, the number one objection was, I don't know where my money's going. I don't know how much is actually going to reach the people that you're saying you want me to help. All right, well, what if it was 100%? Then you couldn't use that excuse. So what if I said 100% of whatever you give, whether it's $1 or $1 million, will directly help people get clean water? And
as in not fund operations.
No overhead, no staff, not my salary, not my flights, not the office, not the copy machine, not the phone bill, not the insurance. What if 100% could go to the field? And I didn't actually know how we would make that work, but I just opened up 2 bank accounts and said, one bank account is where we're going to put all the public's money. This second bank account is going to be for overhead, and somehow we're going to figure out how to fill it. So we can eventually hire an employee one day, and then a second employee if it works. So that was the 100% model. The second thing was, okay, well, money is actually not fungible at this organization then. If you put that stake in the ground, so we can do really cool things tracking the dollars coming in and where 100% of them went. So we could say, okay, $6 came in from this girl who sent in her allowance. Here's where it went out. And it wound up in Malawi or wound up in this village in Orissa, India. So that was the proof pillar. Really the second pillar was, okay, give away 100% of the public's money. Take that objection off the table. 2, just show them what you did with it.
Transparency.
And transparency and showing impact. If you give money and you could see that it actually changed somebody's life, you're more inclined to give again.
And for what it's worth, like photographs of wells
and
built.
Doing this visually. Photos, GPS, visual. We have drilling rigs now that have Twitter accounts and they tweet their location. And just we found 20 ways to do that have been, I think, interesting.
Totally innovative, yeah.
But the core principle was proof. Show people where their money goes. Let them see their impact. The third pillar was brand. And as I looked at the charitable sector, I just saw bad, anemic brands. I saw lame charities.
Yeah.
There was a poverty mentality in their branding, or just a lack of talent, a lack of taste. Charities would put up white papers and say, Chase, I'd really like you to read a 121-page paper about the water crisis, written by some academic, and you wouldn't even get past page 1. There was a study, a New York Times article that cited a study done of a huge charity's website, which I will not name. And the charity put lots of PDFs and documents up. They found that 70% of the PDFs had received not one download. 0 downloads. Okay, so if that's an extreme case, but if that's the old way, the other thing I would say is that there was pervasive shame and guilt-based marketing. Charities would say,
show you a picture of a kid with flies on his face.
We talked about the Sally Struthers commercials from the 80s, the leftovers of that, the sad eyes and the flies landing on the face in slow motion as the 800 number stripes, and it says, please give. This kid's gonna die if you don't give. And it works. Like, people give. They pull out their wallet. But nobody tells their friends about that charity. Nobody wears that t-shirt.
Yeah.
There's no, word of mouth dies when a charity makes you feel shameful or guilty about what you have. And I thought early on, I said, the great brands don't do this. Apple doesn't do this.
Yeah.
Nike doesn't do this. Imagine if Nike told you you're fat and ugly and lazy, turn off the television and go for a run.
Would you like some shoes?
Yeah, and by the way, please buy our shoes. And nobody would want to go for a run.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be talked down to or shamed. Nike's brilliant. They say there's greatness within you, Chase. If you've lost a leg, we believe you can complete a marathon in record time. If you don't have an arm, you can still shot put or play basketball. Like, there's greatness within you. You can overcome adversity. And they just storytell about all these people, and you kind of say, yes, someone believes in me. Yeah. I'm going to turn the TV off. I'm going to try and eat better. I'm going to try and run. And I want to wear the symbol of someone that believes there's greatness within inside me and I can actually do it. And then I wear their clothes. And charities just don't do that. There wasn't this fun and joy and inspiration. You've heard give back. Oh my gosh, I throw up inside my mouth every time I hear a company talking about giving back. The language makes it seem as if the company or the individual has pillaged and plundered to such a degree that it's finally time to throw some scraps back to the poor. And if I here, hold this book. Take this from you. Say, give it back, right? Or I'd like to give something to you. So giving I think should be framed in the positive. I just say drop the language with back. Just talk about our giving program.
Yeah.
Talk about our family's philosophy of giving. Frame giving in the positive because it's a joy and an honor and a blessing to give out of the abundance, to give our time, to give our talent, to give our money, to be of service to others, not as a sense of repaying a debt, not out of shame, not out of obligation. So we just nailed this stuff early on and said, let's make this about hope. Let's make it about opportunity. Let's make it fun. We are inviting people to a party where the whole world gets clean water. You want to come?
Who doesn't?
Do you want to come with your $1 or your $1 million? Do you want to come with your birthday? Do you want to come with your fundraising campaign? Do you want to come with your volunteer hours? You're invited. You're invited. Like, we've literally been saying you're invited for 11 years. Not you have to, not you need to, not you really should because you're so rich. But hey, do you want to come along?
You're invited.
We're doing this really cool thing, and this community of people is just inspiring us every day, and they're going above and beyond. And so that's the kind of, I guess that's how we think about brand. And then the fourth, those are the 3 pillars. And then the fourth, corner, I guess, of the house would be working with local partners. Nobody like me should be drilling wells in Africa or India. I do not have a role as a hydrologist. I do not have a role rowing into a rural village in Bangladesh trying to train the community on water, sanitation, and hygiene. I have a role in becoming an advocate for this issue, getting everyday people to care and act. But for the work to be impactful and sustainable and culturally appropriate, it has to be led by the locals.
Yeah.
So we just got that right early on. We said, we'll raise the awareness and the money, but all the work across the world has to be led by the local heroes. They are the ones that are going to be celebrated as heroes. And to us, success is spending $50 million in Ethiopia, me rolling into Ethiopia and having no idea who we are. Charity water.
Yep.
But our local partners celebrate it.
Yeah.
Like the local heroes, the people that are actually making it happen on the ground. So those 4 things, giving away 100%, improving where people's money goes, and just building an imaginative and inspirational brand and working with local partners, that sounds like common sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like we did anything that innovative. It just wasn't really how things were done 10 years ago.
So I think that the framework that you put in the book here and that you built Charity Water on, to me that's beautiful because, that exists in so many areas of the world. The same opportunity to grow and invent or reinvent a thing that had been broken. Because charity, you didn't invent charity, but you just reinvented and using technology. And I think I felt like we talked about that in our other conversation, but you built an amazing technology platform that allows you to give for your birthday, and it's beautiful. You should go check it out. If we can pivot for just a second from your personal narrative is incredibly inspiring, and to watch what you've built with Charity Water, high five and all of the accolades, because you've earned it and it's impressive and it's incredible. What I'm trying to get out of the next couple of minutes is, what are some do's and don'ts? Because there's a lot of folks who listen who want to have impact, and I think most of the people that I know, if you're a creator and what you want to do is you want to go create a new charity. So I see a lot of that, and I have sent some people your way and said, here's my friend Scott, and, if you want to get involved, you should talk to him first because he built this from the ground up. So there's a lot of people at home watching and listening and say, I want to give. What is someone who's been in this system for so long and you've seen the ups, the downs, you built it from the ground up, what do you recommend?
I think most people should find something and join it. It's a very long, hard road.
Yeah.
And I talk about some of the struggles in the book, and burning out, and wanting to quit, and the moments of near insolvency. And
you were just a couple of those. So these are teasers for the book. You were within moments of insolvency, and then a very generous gentleman.
A stranger walked in and gave $1 million. Complete stranger. There've really been some miracle moments. But had that not happened, we're not sitting here.
Yeah.
And I'm not back in nightclubs, but I'm not running a organization that's helping people get clean water. So it's very difficult. So I normally try and talk most people out of it because they haven't counted the costs, and or a lot of people try and do it part time. Yeah. That's great, but you're just not going to make that kind of an impact. This has been all in. This is year 12, and maybe I'm down to 50 hours a week now with a couple young kids at home, but it was 100 hours a week. It was this
all consuming.
It was the all consuming. You're all in trying to build it, and you're gonna die at any moment. Like, you are never. People said like somewhere around year 4 or 5, oh, you should write a book. I'm like, I don't even know if this organization would be around by the pub date. Like, we may be insolvent in 3 weeks or 3 months. So I do think too, that said, there may be people that say, there's just this problem and I just can't shake it. It's not okay on my watch. Maybe it's a justice issue. Maybe it's hunger. Maybe it's the fact that people are going to bed without a roof over their head. They're sleeping in water, and they're cold, and they're huddling. I would say we also need more social entrepreneurs who are willing to count the cost and go all in and make a life of this. Not do it for a year or 3 years, but do it for decades. Some of the great organizations, you look at the Salvation Army, these are multi-decade commitments by a founder. This isn't kind of I'm going to do some charity, or I'm going to give back. I hear that all the time. Someone will approach us about a job, and they worked at Facebook or Google, made a bunch of money, and they want to do like a year to give back. That's okay, and sometimes they can find ways to be useful, but we also are in need of people who will become advocates for causes, go deep. I literally feel like we are just now getting good at what we do in year 12. We're just now getting it. It takes the 10,000 hours. We did so many boneheaded things. I write about some of the failed water projects, and we screwed up a lot in the beginning.
Rather than failed water projects, because I think you do a nice job of capturing that, let's talk about some big missteps you did in building a charity. There weren't that many. As you said earlier, you got a lot right, but I know you got a couple wrong. Like, what would those be?
Well, the model was incredibly difficult. I talk everyone out of the 100% model. You basically have to do 2 things at once and run them in perfect balance. From a business, so we've now raised about $320 million, and all of the money that we raise from the public, we can't ever touch to pay the now 80 staff in New York City, the office, the flights. We can, from a business model approach, go bankrupt with $100 million in the bank.
Wow.
And we couldn't touch it. We would not make payroll.
Yeah.
Like 80 checks whatever, however, direct debits, right? 80 direct debits would bounce. But yet we'd have $100 million for water projects on its way out to go help 3 million humans. So that's that's been challenging. And the way that we fund the overhead, there are 130 generous families, many of them entrepreneurs who the founders of Twitter and Facebook and Spotify and executives at Apple. And these 130 families are paying for our 80 staff and our office and our flights. But it's incredibly difficult. And we didn't count the cost early on.
Yeah.
That $1 million gift allowed us enough of a reprieve to go out and build that second business. But had that not happened, we would have flamed.
I want to find a way to hear some really, really good news. Talk to me about progress.
Yeah.
In attacking the problem.
Well, the cool thing now is we're helping about 3,500 people a day this year. So today, I woke up and I went to work and had some meetings today and did a podcast, and now I get to see you. And by the time I go to work tomorrow, 3,500 humans will have gone from drinking dirty water to clean water. So we're on a run rate of about 1.5 million people a year. So I was at Madison Square Garden recently with my wife, and
for the Drake show?
No, it was Depeche Mode. Actually.
Nice.
They just raised $2 million for us, and I actually
Incredible.
It was pretty cool. And,
wow.
But I looked around and I said, "Honey, we're doing this every 4 days." Like the volume people. So you have these moments of, like, we are filling MSG at capacity, for a concert every 4 days, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. All the people with dirty water walked into a stadium, right, and moved from dirty water to clean water. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we just did it again. So that's exciting. It's taken us 12 years to get to that point.
Fair.
And, we've done, I think, 8.49 million people. I know it exactly. It's 8.49 million people across 29,500 villages. So that's 1/80th of the global problem now. The problem is down from 1 billion people without water to 670. So 8.5 million against 670 million. Okay, 1/80th.
Crazy.
1.2%, a little more depressing way to look at it.
Yeah.
1/80th sounds better.
Yeah, I like the other one.
But you kind of think like, oh wow, I can imagine this problem being solved, right? If we just did 80 times more, and it's not just us, there's all these other great water groups that are starting up and are also growing, and the awareness of this issue is growing. So that's the good news. It's harder now than it was at any point. So the bigger your scale is, the more challenges you have. Raising the overhead is actually a big challenge at the moment because the water growth is outpacing the 130 families.
Yeah.
So I'm spending a lot more of my time going out and finding family number 131, family number 132. Hey, could you please help us on the other side, on the ops and overhead side?
You still call it the well?
Still call it the well.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing group of unselfish givers that trust us.
Yeah.
Like, I want to pay for the software engineer.
Yeah.
Because your software engineer could be at Google making double, or I want to pay for the accountant's salary, or the water programs engineer, the hydrologist salary. So it's good. I mean, we're gonna do 10. We're gonna get 10 million people clean water. And we're gonna be there in 14 months. 10 million. That feels like something.
That's legit.
And just more. We did a business pivot at year 10 from the birthday idea, which I know you've been a part of before, and a lot of people have heard about. And we said the birthdays are great. People are giving up their birthdays for charity water and the fundraising campaigns. We raised about $50 million that way, but no one's doing a second birthday. So we just have to keep finding new people. This is exhausting.
Yeah.
Right? I can't make more than 100 flights a year. I can't make more than 150 speeches or whatever. It's just, you just can't do that. So we said, what if we move to subscription model? What if we try and build a Netflix or Spotify of charities? And those same people say, can you show up every month, please? $10 a month, $30 a month, $100 a month, whatever you could give. But we were pretty practical about it. We said, this one time, we had 1 million givers give once.
Yeah.
January 1, we'd start at zero. We'd go raise $50 million and, oh wow, it's amazing. It's $1 million a week. All these people gave. And then January 1, it goes all the way back to zero. It's like
starting over. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Go to jail. Like, do not pass go. And we said, well, Netflix has business isn't like that, and HBO's business isn't like that, and Spotify's business isn't like that, and Dropbox's business isn't like that. They just have a lot of people who are showing up month in and month out, getting value from the content, from the storage and whatnot. We said, what if we create a subscription program for pure good where 100% of that value every month is getting passed on to the poorest people in the world? I called it The Spring. I thought that would be a nice name.
Yes,
you know,
well played. Nice brand. Great job.
You know, double entendre, right?
Yes,
Beautiful spring water and water from the earth, and a time of new beginnings for people. Many of these communities will talk about the history of their community before the water and after the water. Like, it's how they tell the story. Before it came and after it came. So we called it The Spring, and we said, hey, look, we're going to anchor around $30 a month. We think there's a lot of people out there that could give $30 a month. It's $1 a day. And that's what it costs us to get one human being clean water. So every $30, I can move someone from dirty water to clean water. And this launched, about
3,000 a day? That's 9,000, 10,000. God, that's, you're raising a lot of money.
Yeah.
I just did the rough math there. That's big money.
Yeah. And that's just on the water side too.
Yeah.
So that now is an amazing community. It's grown to 100 countries. Interestingly, the average is $29.50. So we have a lot of university kids giving $10.
Yep.
We have people giving their allowance. We have people, you know, I don't want to say this, but we have people canceling HBO, and we have people canceling some of these subscription services to actually be a part of The Spring with limiters. And then we have people giving $100 a month and $300 a month and $500 a month. So The Spring is now, it's the fastest growing part of the business. Almost 30,000 people from 100 countries. It's up 220% year over year.
Huge.
It's just growing as the story spreads.
Speaking
but in the best way possible, because I don't have to start January 1 at zero.
Yeah.
I start with 30,000 people who are like, we're in this. You keep doing your part. You keep being transparent. Keep telling us stories of impact and where our money's going. And we'll keep giving. And the impact just grows and grows and grows and grows.
That is an incredible story. You've done a masterful job of capturing in a book. Congratulations on writing 150,000 words about yourself and your life story.
I worked with an amazing writer as well. Her name was Lisa.
It's truly...
She helped get a lot of it on the page, and she came to Africa with me, and we talked a lot. She became a third member of the family for about a year and a half.
Truly remarkable. Thirst by Mr. Scott Harrison. It's always a pleasure to sit with you.
We should say I'm not making a penny off the book.
Yeah, so you've donated your entire advance.
All the proceeds go to Charity Water, the advance, the proceeds. So I really would hope that this book goes and actually helps people get clean water. Besides maybe, inspiring some people that it's never too late. I mean, if I guess that's the theme, for people out there, on a personal level, it is never too late to change. If a scumbag like me can kind of find, redemption and purpose in service to others, you will read this. You are not as bad as me. I can guarantee you. I can guarantee you'd be hard pressed to find yourself in any lower predicament than I was. And I have a beautiful wife and a beautiful family, and I get to help 3,500 people get clean water, and I'm surrounded by amazing team members and volunteers and partners, and it's an incredible thing to do. I still kind of pinch myself, as hard as it is. What did you do today? We got 3,500 humans clean water.
But that's why, whether the folks at home are listening and they're interested in charitable giving or building a business, I think that what's at the core of your story, which is super resonant, is the story of transformation. Transformation of a human, transformation of an industry, of a model, of a problem. The fact that it's gone from 1 billion to 670,000.
670 million.
600, sorry.
We've taken off a third of the problem.
Yeah, that's
collectively the world.
Pick up the book. All the proceeds are going to Charity Water. Congratulations.
Thanks,
huge win on the book. And I promise to get you out of here, and I'm 6 minutes late.
Thanks, buddy.
See you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks.
Everybody.
We could have talked forever.
We could. And thank you so much, man.
Well, I'll invite myself back, and then we could do 2 hours and talk about stuff. We should do one in Africa sometime. We should totally, you should come on a trip, and we should bring some 5Ds and rock it out in, I don't know, Ethiopia.
We've got some people who might want to come along and film.
Creative Live Ethiopia. Come on.
Thank you so much, bud. Hey, everybody, pay attention to Scott at Charity Water, pretty much everywhere, at Scott Harrison also.
Yep.
And thanks again for being a part of the show. Kiara.